So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan, and this is kind of an episode of Backroads Arizona because this is the garage slash transportation for my razor. This trailer has been completely redone. It was basically nasty plywood on the outside when I got it, so we reskinned the aluminum siding. I put the door in, did a one-piece aluminum roof, added the vents for the sides so the gas fumes don't build up in it. I insulated the inside of this thing to keep it cooler. And I also added these little jacks to the back, and we're going to show you why I did that. So let's get to it. Works like a champ. So if you noticed, it hopped up there a little bit, but that ain't no big deal. A little bit more. So as quickly as possible, I'm going to run through all the tools and supplies I used to do this part of this project. Knee pad was a must for me. I'm getting old. I'm going to use it right now, actually. This was a three-person project. It took me and the wife to hold the panels up in place, and then I had my daughters clamping the panels in place to hold them until I got them drilled and riveted. Gloves are a must for holding those panels. Those panels will cut the crap out of you. As far as cutting the panels, I used a jigsaw on everything. I did start trying to use a grinder with a diamond cutoff wheel. The aluminum will clog up the cutting edge here, and if you're using these abrasive wheels like this, these can explode on you, so this is an absolute no-go. See all that aluminum that's just gathered up? That's what it's supposed to look like. And the aluminum just clogs up the cutting tool. I did use this flapper style of a wheel to just sand down some edges if I needed to. The tape was recommended to me instead of silicone to seal between the panels, and I've got to say I'm really glad that I went this direction. This was way easier than trying to silicone between every panel. Hopefully it holds up as well. They said it would. Cutters to cut the tape. The brake clean and the rag was to clean the surfaces before I put the tape on to make sure it would adhere good. And then I've got a hammer and a punch here and my rivet gun and rivets. The hammer and punch, in case I didn't have a rivet pull down quite right, I would drill it out, punch the old rivet out, and put another one in. So I've stripped all the sides off. I've got my aluminum side paneling here. And then I've got just two tables set up for my cutting table. Alright, so to cut this stuff, I use a jigsaw right now. Just measuring out two spots at 34 inches for the next panel I need. And then we're going to run a straight edge. Okay, so we're marking this out to rivet it. So I'm going a ½ inch in when I put a new panel on. So I've got these two marked. Now we're just taking a straight edge. Draw a line down. On the seams where it's joining two of the panels, I'm going every 6 inches. At first I was trying to drill through with a 3/16 right off the bat. Found out that using some pilot drill, smaller drill bits, cheaper, burning those up and then going through with the 3/6 on the final worked out a lot better. So I pilot drill it, go through with the 3/16. I'm just doing this one to show you. This is actually a Harbor Freight rivet gun, and it's been working awesome. Then pull the plastic protective coating up and throw the rivet in. Now usually I'm doing 3 or 4 at a time. I go bottom and then kind of work my way up. So if there is a bubble, it should work its way up as I go. So an easy way to get a lot quicker drilling done is to have somebody push on your back when you're when you're drilling. You can just get a lot more leverage that way. It adds twice the force, probably more than that when you're pushing. That's 1/4 inch steel that we're drilling through right now. So this seam, you don't want the wind catching the seam. So that's why you put the back panel, next panel, so the air goes across that and is not catching on the seam going the other way. So the door I got with this trailer, guys, is a little dinged up. And obviously with all the new outside paneling, I don't want this used dinged up paneling on the outside. The back panel is really damaged. So I'm going to take that front panel, put it on the back, and then put a brand new panel on the front. I've got the 4 screws that were in this out. If you end up having to drill off rivets, I usually get a drill bit that I can just barely drill enough to pop this head off, and then you can get a good view of how big the actual rivet itself is, and if you need to, you can drill it out a little bit more. Oh, the aluminum siding that I bought is a little thicker, so I got to take another layer of material off this door, otherwise my trim is not going to fit around it. So I started peeling this up. Okay, so I went ahead and put some liquid nails on here. We're going to lay the inside skin on this door, and then we're going to put the outer trim back on. Okay, so we start out at an angle. Get this corner right where it should be. Hold that, Jaylene. Get this started. Okay, that way it holds it. And then just kind of work it. So I'm just using this little mesh material to kind of protect the top layer, because I already took the coating off because we put the trim on. I'm just a little bit small on my cutout here. Okay, so I've got this one-sided tape that we've been using on all the panels. Go ahead and doing a thing around the door. I'm using my finger as an edge to hold that line against the outside edge of the door here. So you get a nice smooth line all the way down. The door I pretty much just centered in the gap that I had and riveted that in place. So to save some paneling, I added 2 extra cross members here. So we can do this piece separate from this piece. That's going to save me an extra piece of aluminum siding, which is $100 a pop. So that's what we ended up doing there. And then I welded these 2 cross members in here, because I'm going to put some diamond plate on the inside, and my tires are going to hit against that on the razor to hold it. So now I'm starting in this corner, I'm working my way down. So if you noticed, when I was using the rivet gun, I only had to basically snap it twice to get them to pop. And that's because I got some different length rivets. I only used the rivet that was long enough to do what I was going through. Multiply an extra 2 times per rivet times about 400 rivets, and you got about 800 extra strokes you got to do. Peel this down, put 2 more rivets. So I'm putting a couple really big vents in so it lets the gas fumes exit the trailer, so it's not a fire hazard. So what I've done is basically it's a 12-inch square. I marked it off in here. I drilled my holes through. Traced it out to the outside edges of the holes. Now we're going to cut it out. So we're cutting the styrofoam to fit the inside of the trailer for insulation. I'm just using a table saw to cut all this stuff. It's making a big mess, but it does work and it's fast. I cut these pieces a little big so they kind of squeeze into place and hold themselves. So we are completely done insulating it. Now I just got to figure out my interior. So I got my one-piece roof, and I'm using the same method to cut it as I did all the other aluminum sheets. So getting the roofing up is gonna be a little challenging because it's me and my wife and my kids. So I pulled it right next to my other trailer so I could use that as some help as far as height-wise. Because we're gonna take this strap, I'm going to tie it to my 2 clamps that I've got holding the roll, and I'm going to do most of the lifting from the top of the roof, but I'm going to have somebody on the other side of the trailer holding tension on the strap here to be able to hold it while I lift. Hold. That one tight.
Why is your side not moving?
Jaylee, hold tight, pull hard. Got it?
Got it.
Mama, hold.
Go like this.
It's up.
So I was going to use screws up here, but I like the rivet idea. The only thing I'm worried about is the rain, but I think I'm going to get a thick putty and just coat the top area like this all the way around. I did go ahead and put some caulking underneath here. So I couldn't find that putty I was looking for, so I just put a little bit of caulking in the top of each one of the rivets. The trailer was a little wider than 8 foot, so I cut a piece of 8-foot aluminum, and that way I've still got one low spot that the water can just drain right off, so I don't carry that 1/8 inch water on the top if it rains. The top trim is just some sheet metal roofing trim because I had to have this custom edge up there. I wanted to try and find some aluminum, but funds ran low. It's getting hot here in Phoenix and I needed to get this done. So that might eventually be changed, but for now it's doing just fine. So that's the basic overview of how this was all done. It took us about 2 weekends to skin the outside of this, basically because my hand was hurting from drilling so many holes. The next weekend we did the insulation on the inside, and I also did the roof. So I just put some painter's tape down to give me a line. Since I'm backing this in, since my door is on this side of the trailer, I'm going to back into here so I can use that door. So I wanted to give myself kind of a line to follow, and when I paint it or put the vinyl in, I'll probably do the same thing. I took all my exterior paneling and used it on the inside because I went to get some plastic or something else and it was going to be really expensive, so since I already had this, I went ahead and used it. For the ceiling, this is just some 1/4 inch nice finished plywood. I'll caulk it in and paint it eventually, but it's not happening right now because it's pushing over 100 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's going to happen probably in September, October time. I do have a couple mistakes that I did make, but like that one right there is going to be covered up by caulking. I did misdrill one right here, and I got to cover that up with some caulking, which I'm not too pleased about. But overall, if you're not looking for it, you can't really tell. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Later.